Smith. Is that better, Eli? Are you there? Eli. Great job.
Can you hear me?
No, your phone's messed up.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, I had to take off my headset. Anyways.
Really great start to the show, Eli. Great.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
So anyway, how you doing, brother?
I'm good. Just cleaned up my dog shit in my house, so that's why I'm on kind of late. And apparently the headset I had on for the show, my wife accidentally washed it in the washing machine, so that's why you couldn't hear me.
Hey, at least you.
So that's how my day's going. How's your day?
Not so good. I'm actually doing the show this week from my wife's family's house up in Santa Maria. I actually wasn't really going to do this show because, as anyone that follows me on Twitter knows, or my close friends obviously know, Alicia's grandmother passed away last week. And today at 3 o'clock we are going to, I don't really know what they do. I know she's cremated, but we're going to put the container of her ashes in a tomb with her husband. And so it's, it's not super organized, but it's kind of a sad day. And I was kind of struggling with doing the show, but my wife told me, to go ahead and do it. And, we're having a good thing. We're on a roll, so not to freak out about it. But, so there's that. But on our way up here, the family dog died. So I came here, and Vic, who just lost his mother, is in the backyard burying his dog of 12 years. So that poor guy lost his mother and his dog, which for those of us that don't have dogs probably don't think it's important. Obviously, the mother's the bigger one, but it's just a lot for him, and my heart goes out to him. So I'm actually in his office doing a radio show while he's, getting himself ready for the memorial. So it's a little weird. So I apologize. I'm also on a cordless phone. I didn't really prep too great this week because I wasn't planning on doing the show. So for all the listeners that are listening, I apologize if anything gets off track or if we're not as prepared as we normally are. It was kind of a rough week with everything. So with that said, I say we start the show. I think we're sitting on a powder keg and we're giving off sparks, baby. I've tweeted what I wanted to talk about today, and I'm expecting callers. I'm hoping people call in. Everybody's welcome to call in. Anybody that's ever called in and talked to me, despite the reputation I may have, I'm actually very sweet. As long as you're honest with me and direct, you will have your say. I will treat you with respect as long as you treat me with respect, and we'll have a good discussion. And who knows, you may change my mind and vice versa. But you have to be open-minded when you call. The number is 323-417-6705. And the topic today is loosely based off abortion. It's not going to be a pro-choice, pro-life debate. I'm not even going to really get into my personal opinions, but on Twitter this week I got into a lot of interesting discussions with the usual crazy people that I tweet with, and I thought it would be an interesting topic for the show, especially with me being relocated and everything with the death in the family. I didn't really have time to find a guest. I was going to do it on addiction. So anyway, call in, 323-417-6705. But before we get there, I talked about it a little bit on Mike and Jeff's show on Scripted Radio on Thursday. But the last time you heard me on this show was we did the episode on obesity. And I just want to clarify that woman, Peggy. I said Peggy, right? I didn't say Piggy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Peggy, I can't remember her last name. She was a lovely, lovely lady, and it was going well until she felt a little threatened and slammed the phone. And I emailed her after the show and said, hey, I meant no offense. If the show gets heated, it's a topic I know that's tough for anyone to talk about. And she told me her battery died. So I took that. I said, okay. But I'll tell you, here's the weird thing.
Her battery died?
She said her phone died. But for those of you that have really listened to me from the beginning, when me and Eli used to be on KCAA, we actually had this interview set up with another woman from NAFA, which is the National Association for the Advancement of Fat Acceptance. Yeah, it's a civil rights group for fat people. And we had this woman, she said she would call. We set it up. We had the number. We went to go on air live, and she hung up on us. I called her back. She wouldn't answer my phone. Eli called her on his phone. She answered his line. And then when he said, here's the show you've agreed to, she hung up. Guess what story I got the next day when I called NAFA and said, hey, this was weird. We had agreed upon guest. She didn't call. You know what they told me? Her phone died. They told me her phone died. So I've been hung up twice by two separate people from this organization, both who say their phone died. And that's all I'm going to put out there. It may be possible that they don't have phones because they're too busy, running their organization. I bet you thought I was going to make a fat joke, didn't you?
Yeah, I was waiting for something.
No, I'm not here to insult people unless they deserve it. And anyone that listened to that show, when Peggy called, I was more than nice and deferential to her. I let her speak her piece. But the second she got defensive and hung up and lied to me about it, as far as I'm concerned, that woman, not that organization, that woman is now in my sights, and I am free to insult her as I see fit.
Well, I listen. I was listening to what she was saying, and some of the questions were somewhat, I would say, really gets into the core of maybe what she feels, sensitive about, and it probably is a painful subject for her since it sounds like she suffers from, sounds like she has a weight issue, and I think the questions you were asking were very forward and direct, and you really wanted her to really convey herself from a point of that she was very insecure, and it got to a point where it was too painful that she couldn't deal with it, and she hung up.
Here's the thing. This is the show that I see. And like I said, I'm green, and I got to get better. But when I decided to do this show, there is a part of me that is narcissistic like the rest of us, like I talked about 2 weeks on the show. But there's also a part of me that feels I have a unique perspective, be it the way I was raised, just the way my brain works, whatever it is, I've always been open. I'll put it this way. I've always been open to myself that I may be delusional on something, that I may be in denial. It's something I've always been hyper aware of. Now, I'm not saying I'm better than anybody. I'm just saying it's a question that I've never been afraid to ask myself. I've been afraid to fix it. I've been afraid to admit it. I've been afraid of change like everybody else, but I've never been afraid to ask. And when I started the show, I thought, you know what, this is a powerful medium, and forget that you saw me on the reality show or that I'm Roseanne's son. And at this point, I think we have a relationship, all of us. I'm Jake Pentland now. I'm my own person. And this is the message that I've always wanted to get out. It's not even about fixing anyone like I thought. It's about getting people okay to look at themselves and ask that very question. Am I being delusional now? Am I reacting?
Right.
Is this my personal bias? Just ask. I'm not even asking that you answer it. I'm not even asking that you do anything. You could still be a big old fat slob after we talk. That's fine. But when confronted on it, we have this agreement. I feel I treat you with respect when you call in. I sat there that whole hour talking about the different reasons for being obese. I was not the caller that said they eat too much, like Jeffrey, who's on the air now, which wasn't a bad call. But he was taking a much more aggressive approach, in my opinion, than I was, where I was talking about, psychological problems with it and how it's not fair to just say that obese people eat too much. So in a lot of ways, I was actually defending this woman. I was going out of my way, bending over backwards so that she'd feel safe and secure. And repeatedly, she was aggressive and in denial. And for a long time, I was okay with that. I knew it wasn't simple. She drops a little thing about her father controlling her diet, where I maybe didn't make a big enough production about it on the air last week. But that, to me, that was it. I was there. I was getting to the root of her dysfunction. I could feel it.
Right.
So I told a story that was true about how my parents padlocked my refrigerator, how they sent me to a Weight Watchers camp even though I was 70 pounds. And that very nature of controlling my intake messed up my relationship with food forever. So I felt like I couldn't have made it any safer. Now, again, I'm not asking that she sits and go, oh, Jake, you saved my life. I'm going to go run a mile. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I bent over backwards for you. You have the opportunity. I'm going to pose this question in a non-threatening way. And all you have to do is be open to answering the question. Now, I'm not the Dalai Lama. I do not have my stuff together, so to say. I have anger and resentment like everybody else. And I felt at that point I had given her a perfect opportunity to say, well, maybe my father controlling my diet has something to do with it. But what she said, her response, if you go back and listen to that show, very quickly she said, being fat doesn't mean that you have a mental problem. Not all mental problems cause disorder. Not all fat people have mental problems, which is not what I said. Then she hung up on me. So anyway, I just wanted to clear that up. Apparently the phones are not good at NAFA. And Peggy, you're welcome to call back anytime. But do me a favor, before you call, if you ever do, just ask yourself, very simply, am I 300 pounds because of dysfunction? Anyway, we can move on now. I think I said my piece. And I see we got some callers on topic of abortion, which is what I did tweet that we're going to do the show about. So I think it's time to move on.
Yeah.
What's that, Eli?
I was just going to say, it's time to move on.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you think that, Eli. I'm just kidding. Okay, here's the thing. I got in a debate earlier in the week. I shouldn't even say debate. Discussion about abortion. What started this conversation was Santorum, who's this douchebag. I know you're probably more right-wing than I am, Eli. He's a Republican guy running for Republican nomination for the president. He said, when asked about birth control, that where he's from, birth control that he knows of is women put aspirin between their knees. And what he's saying in so many words is women didn't have sex outside of marriage, so they never got pregnant. So there was no need for birth control. And in sort of a underhanded way, he's basically saying, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it wouldn't be unusual to interpret it as maybe he's putting too much responsibility of unwanted pregnancies on women, because men are obviously just as culpable in the situation. And it's also naive, because here's a guy who grew up, very Christian, I am assuming, and he's talking about his very sort of sheltered existence, and he's trying to say that's, as president, he's going to view everything through this sheltered existence, which the last thing you want a president to say. You want a president to say, I'll make the best decision for the country. And here he is putting his own dogma on a very, very, very hot-button issue, abortion. I mean, you can already tell. I think I'm nervous about today's show because it's one of those, it's very taboo. So that's what started it. So for the record, I will say a little opinion. That guy's a douchebag, Santorum, for saying that, because people are going to have sex, and not everybody is raised with the religious dogma that sex is only for marriage. There's all sorts of different ways we were raised. There's atheists, there's Buddhists, there's, secular, there's agnostic. Everybody has their own upbringing, their own experiences, so it's wrong for you to say to somebody else what they should and shouldn't do based on yours. With that said, on the topic of abortion, I'm a man, and I am pro-choice. I think the government should have no say in whether or not a baby is aborted. It should have no say, and I find it very odd, and the funniest thing of all is that it's usually Republicans that push this. When they're always talking about smaller government, they don't want government to have any say, but here they're asking the government to literally make a law, pass a law about what a woman can and can't do with her body, which is the ultimate form of government control when you think about it. So with all that said, I think my politics are clear. I don't want to say more. I casually mentioned in Twitter, I think on Tuesday or Wednesday, talking about Santorum to my sister, after she explained to me the aspirin line, that I don't know how we got there, but basically what I said is I don't think the government should have any say in what somebody does with their body, what a woman does with their body. If anyone should have say, it's the father of that child. Well, that sparked a debate. Now, granted, we're still on the air. My mother hasn't called it and yelled at me, so it didn't get as ugly as the feminist thing. And this is not a feminist issue. This is not me being a man accusing women of anything. I want to clear this all up from the start. I'm not even going to put my opinion on it. I just want to talk about it and ask the very simple question. Hopefully women call in. When you say it's my body, my decision, how do you feel, and at what point do you feel a man should have say, if at all, in the decision? So that's all I really want to talk about. I don't want it to devolve into politics or religious debates. I'm sure it's going to go there. I'm going to do my best this next 45 minutes to keep it on that subject, which is simply how much role does a man play, the father of the baby, in the decision to abort or not abort? So I see we have a caller. Her name is Isabella in Vegas. We're going to go right to her. We're going to get right into this. Isabella, are you there?
I am here. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course. How are you?
I'm good. I do have one problem with one thing you're saying repeatedly. It's not really a baby. When you're talking about abortion, that kind of makes you sort of start to go, where's the line of baby versus fetus? And that's kind of bothersome to me when people go, oh, you're killing a baby. Well, no. And I also don't think a man should have too much to say about this at all. You can't get pregnant. You don't deliver. You don't do the majority of the caretaking for the child. It is the mother's job. So when it comes down to it, I think it is strictly and should only be a woman's choice.
Well, let's do your first point, which is at what point does the fetus become a living baby? And that's one thing I want to be careful. That's a whole other show. That's a whole other 10 shows. And we know where that can go, and I don't want it to devolve. But I will say, I didn't, to clarify what I said, if you're talking about what I said, I never said it's killing a baby of the fetus, because I honestly don't know when that line is. And honestly, I don't really think it's important. I'll probably get in more trouble than you for saying that, because if you're going to make the decision to abort a kid, obviously don't wait till it's 15 and then, shoot it in the back of the head. Obviously it's going to happen before the baby's born. And at that point, whether it's in the 4th or 5th month or 6th month, that's a whole debate that I'm not even going to touch with a 10-foot pole. I just want to clarify what I said. This is a decision made by two people that have both made a baby. And at the point, if it's just a fetus, looks like a peanut, it's still a fertilized egg. And it is still half the father's semen and half the mother's egg. So whether it's a soul in a living, breathing animal, I think is, like I said, a whole other topic. The point is, what I'm trying to say, if you want to, I don't want to use the term claim ownership. I can't think of a better term. But at that point, it is 50% the father and 50% the mother, in my opinion. And I think science would back me up, because one of the weird things that happened to me during the debate this week is I had a lot of women saying to me, well, you just donate the sperm, as if the sperm is, just an extra ingredient that doesn't really matter. Anybody that ever
we could not have a baby without your part. There would be no child. There would be no fetus. Not to say that men have no rights on this field, but you're not the one who is carrying out this life or fetus, whatever your term may be, to fruition, and you don't bear the greatest responsibility in this process. So I kind of, my view, and my view only, is that although a man might want some information about what's going on, I don't know if I can his right to know. I don't think it's your responsibility. I really don't. There's just too many men that don't step up to the plate, and it's a very personal decision. It's a very hard choice for women to make. It's not something that women do lightly for the most part. It's just a very hard choice to make, but it is a choice.
So just to clarify your stance, you're saying, obviously the father is the father, and he has responsibility in making the kid, but not in deciding the fate. Are you saying within the first 9 months?
Well, I would say the first 9 months. What responsibility? What can you add during that 9 months that would give you equal responsibility?
Well, again, that's a whole other show. One point I would make is, this is as a man, what I'm hearing, and I want to be careful not to react, is basically you show up, you butter the muffin, so to speak, and then we incubate and we're on our own, which anyone I know there's single mothers or single fathers, so this is clearly talking about the people where the father is involved in those situations. To say, when you say things like that, what I'm hearing is you're basically saying the father doesn't really do anything. And I think we all have seen relationships where that simply isn't true. And if you want to go back in time, since the beginning of humankind, and since all we do as men and women is we're programmed to procreate so that the human animal can survive, well, a woman getting pregnant in the wild by herself without a man, she's dinner. She's dinner.
True.
So, you know what I'm saying? So there is, whether they're not, we're incubating the baby or taking care of the baby or feeding the baby, you are kept alive because the man was out protecting. He was building fences. He's also bringing you food. There's a point when a woman's 8-9 months pregnant, we all know, where she can barely walk. She's carrying this, this child, this burden on her body. So, I'm not saying it can't be done, or there aren't women that have had babies on their own and all that. I'm not even getting to that. I'm just saying, for the most part, a man plays a very active role in that first 9 months that should not be overlooked. And one thing I've always tried to do with this show is just give you guys, because most of my listeners, oddly, are women, is to give you the perspective from a man who's, I'm not threatening, I'm not a jock, I don't get up here and say, get in the kitchen, bitches, or anything like that. Just letting you know, when you say things like that, it's actually, honestly, it's disrespectful, for lack of a better term.
I did not. I have to apologize if that's how I came across, because I really did not mean that. It is just such a personal choice, and to have the pressure or the influence of someone that actually is not going through the process of an abortion, who would not be in the stirrups, so to speak. Although it's going to be emotionally hard on the father if he chooses to be involved, it's not happening to him personally. So the support and respect that one would get from a man, or one would hope you would get from a man in that situation, is usually sorely lacking. You can go to any abortion clinic, and you're not going to see too many dads there with the mom. That's just a sad statistic. So in a utopian world, your way would be perfect, and that's what we would all hope and wish for. but that's just not reality today.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, the law is in your favor. It's on your side, so to speak. I mean, they passed the law. We've researched it today. Eli emailed me. Roe v. Wade was the first one. There was I can't remember, verse Casey, maybe you know Eli, but in so many words, basically the language is if a woman, even if she's married, in a committed, married, or even committed, she doesn't legally have to tell the husband or the father of the baby for an abortion. This is the law that passed. So I just want to clarify the next issue of debate that we'll talk about is now if a woman, she goes out partying and some other guy's partying and they have a one-night stand, they never talk to each other again. Obviously, I'm not advocating that this woman has to go track him down, get him to sign off, and if he says no, then he's going to tie her up and force her to have a baby, which is one of the things I was accused of. And I can see how why this is such a complicated issue, because if I sit here and say, well, the father should have rights, well, what about, and like you pointed out, what about a father that's not active? And now all of a sudden he has say, he's out, he's not even taking care of her or the baby, and yet he can have a say in the decision, even though she's going to raise the kid the rest of her life. And I can understand why women would have an issue with that, and why they would hear me saying a man should have some say as, not necessarily an attack, but why that would make them defensive to agree with that, because some guys simply aren't there. Also, there's obviously extreme cases like rape. I'm not saying you have to go get the rapist to sign off consent, obviously. I want to clarify that. When I talk about a man's say, again, to clarify, I am talking about a man who's in a committed relationship with the woman, okay? So whether you're married, living together, whatever you want to say, it's a committed relationship, you're faithful to each other. It's an agreement that you live together. We all know what that means, right? In that case, legally, a woman doesn't have to tell the boyfriend or the husband. And I have an issue with that, because this is not about a man being a deadbeat Disneyland dad or not showing up or just showing up to the table and donating sperm, like Jen said on Twitter. This is a man who's there every day. This is someone that you're in a secure relationship with. And when you have a child, because you're both having sex, there's no adult today that isn't aware that when you have sex you're going to get pregnant. That's why there's condoms. There's responsibilities we all have. Skipping that, again, that's a whole other debate. I'm talking about a relationship where the man is just as much part of the life as the woman, and that baby's half his. I think he should have a say, in my opinion. What do you say to that?
And what would your say be, though? What would your argument? I mean, are you wanting to have an argument here that no matter what, I want you to have this child? Is it a conversation, or is it truly a say, your opinion?
Are you asking me?
Yes, I'm asking you.
Well, the point I'm trying to get out very simply is that is more of a reaction to the thing I hear a lot, which is it's my body, it's my decision. Only I can only extrapolate that to that's my baby. And on behalf of all men, and there's a lot of us that are good, there's a lot of us that take care of our kids and our responsibilities, that is beyond disrespectful. That's brutal to say that's my baby because I'm carrying it. And so it's more of a reaction to that, if I'm going to be honest. Yes, I am reacting. There's a little anger because I got in this Twitter debate all week, and I was just asking the question initially, like, I didn't even say how much say the father should have. I just asked that question, do you think the father should have say? And what I mostly got in return was, no, you're just the sperm donor. And it's a little bit like I talked to you a few minutes ago. But
ultimately, it is their decision at the end, isn't it?
Legally,
I mean, you guys can mutually discuss what it is both of you decide to do, whether you're a husband or wife or boyfriend and girlfriend. But ultimately, it is the woman's decision.
Well, let me ask you, Eli, do you think that's fair? Or Jeffrey or anybody?
Do I think it's
fair? Oh, my gosh. Oh, no. Now, if you think you've had a Twitter war before this, is that fair for a woman to have that choice?
That's not what I said. No. We asked if they think that's fair. I didn't even say that. Because, again, legally, it is the woman's choice. I'm saying, and again, I'll get to the point here. The real point I want to make is if women want to say, that's my baby and that's my choice, and you want me to agree with that, how about this? This is what I put out on Twitter, and this is where the powder keg is going to blow up. If that's what you want, if you want every single man to go, you know what, even though we both made this baby, even though it's 50% my DNA and 50% yours, and the act we did, both responsible adults, in making this baby, if you want to claim ownership of it, then how about this? Fine. It's your decision on whether you keep it or you don't. You don't even have to tell me. But then if I decide as a man that I don't want to hold responsibility for that kid, I don't have to. I don't have to pay child support. And I'll tell you why. And again, this is not my opinion, but I think it's kind of unfair to say that's my baby in these first 9 months, but then it's your baby for the next 18 years. And you have
very
no say.
True. Very, very good point. Very, very
Thank
true. But I'm just curious. Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I happen to work in the healthcare industry, and I have worked in abortion clinics before, and really there's just such a fraction of the patients that come in are in the situation that you're referring to. And usually it's a medical necessity. It's a health reason that's done. It is so rarely done just for birth control. It's just not, it just doesn't happen. I think it's just such a rare occurrence. Less than 1% are in a committed relationship and choose to not include their partner in any of the decision are adults, and not just legally but mentally. And I mean, what you're talking about sounds like a very rare anomaly to have those two factors together, a committed personal relationship, and then go through without telling the other person have the abortion.
But would you admit, and it's not such an anomaly, that there are women that do decide to keep a baby without running it by the man, and then have legal action taken against the man for child support?
Oh no, that happens more than women ever want to admit. Yeah, that's sadly is the paycheck for some women, and it's something they can depend on every month. And those are the ones you think, oh gosh, well maybe you should have gone and had the abortion if you're not going to be a parent. If you're just doing this for economic gain, and that does happen more than you would think.
Right.
So,
which in that case, again, the argument of it's my body, it's my choice. When you add that in, when you think that way, and again, that's not saying all women do that. I got to constantly clarify.
No.
In the instances
but
where
it
that
does
happens, that to me, when I hear it's my body, my choice, I go, ooh, this is getting a little scary because yes, it is your body. And yes, if you want it to be your choice, it is your choice. Legally, it is your choice. And again, if me and my wife got pregnant and she wanted an abortion and I wanted to keep the kid, really, there's not much I can do. I mean, if she can sneak out in the middle of the night and get an abortion, I literally can't tie her down and force her to have a baby. And I wouldn't do that, obviously. So, yeah, at the end of the day, it is her choice, legally. Morally is a different issue. But then it does leave sort of a gray area where, it's not really safe for men, because one of the things I said when I said that, another thing I got from some of the crazy women that I was fighting with on Twitter was, well, then wear a rubber. If you don't want the responsibility, wear a rubber, which I totally agree with. I've never gotten anyone pregnant, okay? I've always been safe. Obviously, I can handle and take responsibility for the action of adult sex. And if I did have a child, it would be planned and prepared, okay? Now, that is an anomaly nowadays.
That is an anomaly. That is an anomaly to have someone in that situation. However, I'm just really curious, what would be your argument, if there is one, to the woman if she told you, so your wife came to you and she was pregnant, did not want to keep the fetus, what would be your argument or comments to her?
Well, this, again, I want to be very careful. Me and my wife, as I am married, this would never happen because
never say never.
Well, I'm not saying we'd never get pregnant, but what would never happen is that we wouldn't be on terms and agreement before a situation happened. I mean, one of the first things before I even got married is we had this discussion, which is, again, part of being responsible. It's not like, hey, let's do a bunch of blow and go have a bunch of crazy sex and then tomorrow talk about it. I've always been very careful. So to answer that question, it would never happen only because me and my wife would have to mutually plan to have the kid. She's on birth control. She'd have to go on. We've already been to the doctor. I already know the steps taken, how long she's got to be off it. When she takes antibiotics, I know that counteracts birth control, which a lot of women don't. So in those times, I wear a condom. We are very, very careful. To answer the hypothetical, not just me, but a man that wanted a baby and his wife came to him and said, no, I don't want it, if they couldn't come to agreement. I'm not saying to go this route, but I would pose it as a question. what if the man then at that point felt as if the woman killed his baby? And again, this is not my opinion. It's just a question and hypothetical. So be careful here. It's a hypothetical. If the man wants a baby, they created a baby, they both are responsible. It's not like he poked holes in the condom. Let's just say they're both responsible. They're in an adult relationship. And she says, I don't want it. And he says, I do.
So then she would be, in fact, murdering your child? That's hypothetically?
That's not what I'm saying. I think the man could view it that way, possibly, yes, legally. Would there be legal recourse? It's more of a question. I'm not saying this is my belief, but could it be taken? Could a man have a case in court if he says, look, she's literally taking, there's kidnapping. There's obviously baby murder. This is a thing where we have a baby. I want the baby. She doesn't. Could he do it? Again, this is hypothetical conversation here. I'm just a moderator at this point. Could he and does he have a court case?
Well, if he's religious, he does.
Why does religion make a difference?
Because in the Catholic religion, the minute conception happens, it is a baby. I'm not saying I agree with that, but that is what most religions believe in. So if a wife did that, technically, if you're using religion as a background, it would be murder.
I don't mean to cut you off. It would, but that's a philosophical debate. The thing is, if what I'm talking about is a court case, because does he have a court case? Obviously, in America, I don't know in anywhere else, but we're talking in America, it's a legal case. A religion, there's a separation. Still, as long as Santorum doesn't get elected, there is still a separation of church and state. So this would be a legal case. And I'm just putting it out there. Does he have a legal case? Could he then say, she's killing my baby or kidnapping my baby? I'm going
to interrupt you. My husband and I were discussing this. My husband is an attorney, and we discussed this very topic right before I called in, and he said legally, no attorney in their right mind would touch that. It just could not legally happen as things are today. If you were to go and file...
There's already a decision made in the U.S. Supreme Court in regards to that.
Well, I know there's been decisions made about the father not being consulted, but what I'm talking about is post facto. She goes through with the abortion. Does he have a claim for child endangerment, for manslaughter, for kidnapping?
No, because it's legal. It is a legal medical procedure. You take away the legality of it, then you might have a case. But as it stands today, it is a medical procedure. And hopefully we fought very long, very hard, 40, 50-plus years to have that right to do that. And it, again, I think that you're not really in touch with the abortion community if you're thinking that way, because we really do tell the women, you have a choice. You have options. We advocate adoption oftentimes. We advocate every other choice that there is, and then we send them out very prepared when they leave. You've got birth control, you've got resources, you've got a community to deal with it, because it is a trauma. It's something that is not taken lightly by the women that I've seen. So thankfully we've got a legal leg to stand on to continue to have the right to do this.
Okay, so then putting the legal issue aside, fair enough. A morality issue. Do you have a
Morally, it is extremely difficult for 99% of the women that walk in there. It is the hardest choice they will ever make in their entire life.
Of course, but
in this entire life, there will never be anything that comes close to that.
No, I'm saying in a situation of a man and woman that are married. Do you think there's a moral obligation she has?
I think that there is no difference. There is no difference, really. It is the most difficult decision that any couple, any individual, anyone will ever come up against. Because if you do look at the religious side, if you do look at the moral side, if you do look at the populist side, it is taking a life. And the guilt and the shame that the women live with is tremendous. And it takes years and years of therapy to heal from that. But it is something that we have available for the women. And it is sad that men are not more like you. We could use a lot more men like you. But we're not there yet, and maybe that's where we need to be talking.
All right. Well, Isabella, I'm going to say thank you. It was a fascinating call. Thank you so much.
Thanks for taking my call.
Of course. Call in anytime.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. I have another caller. All the note says it's my guardian angel from Twitter. That could either be Michelle or Lodoax, I can't even pronounce it. Caller, you're there.
Yeah, it's Lori.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. I had to wake up, even though I work all night tonight, to listen to this because I'm very passionate about it. I've made a lot of women mad because I agree with you on this. As a married couple, I think the guy should have a right.
I do too. I absolutely do too. And again, maybe, like I said, I've been traveling. My wife's grandmother died, so I'm not as prepared as I should be. But what I'm trying to clarify is there's a million different ways this can go. Specifically on topic, I'm talking about two people in a committed relationship. Does the father have a say? And right now, I'm not talking about one-night stands, deadbeat dads, any rape or anything like that. I'm talking about someone like me. I've been married. I'm in my third year of marriage. If my wife got pregnant and didn't tell me, got an abortion, and I found out, we would have a big problem. And honestly, if I'm being honest, that's grounds for divorce. I would divorce her the second I found that out. Because it's completely disrespectful to deny my input in the child's life. And again, abortion, I am pro-choice. I'm not going to sit here and judge anybody what they do. I know a lot of women that have gone through abortions. I know the good and the bad, but we are talking about two people in a committed relationship, to clarify. So go ahead, Laurie, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I totally agree with that. I think if you are in a committed relationship and you're not talking to your spouse and you just go ahead and do it, it's totally wrong. Or I don't think it should be just the woman's say in it. If you are married and you become pregnant, I think that your husband should have a say in that because that is half his child, And what if he really wants it and you don't? First of all, I think it should be discussed first before you actually get to that point of what would happen before you're actually in that position,
Yeah, I would hope the women that disagree with me know that, at least. I hope they don't sit there and go, well, I'm not even going to talk to them. I hope they don't think I'm accusing them of that. I imagine they would discuss it with their husband. I'm hopeful.
But there are ones that don't.
Yeah, and to me, that's wrong because this is somebody who's committed themselves to you. This is not a one-night stand. This is somebody who says, I'm in your life for better or for worse, here to protect you and love you. We've made a child. If you're religious, that's the highest level of life you can do. If you're just a normal person, it's still the highest level of anything you can do on this planet. There's nothing more important in your life, if you think about it as a human, than procreating. You can make all the money in the world.
Exactly.
Really, at the end of the day, and I'm probably not going to have children, but I know this. I have cats, close enough. But at the end of the day, the most important thing you can do on this planet is to have a child. And that's the greatest thing you'll ever do. So to deny, I know it's a legal and moral issue all over the place, but for anybody, this is the real issue here. For anybody, I don't care if you're a man or woman or what your stance on the subject is, for anyone to say one person has more of a say in a child's life than the other is wrong. It's fundamentally wrong. Because it takes two to make a baby. Did we learn this in kindergarten? It takes two to tango? I mean, you can't get pregnant. If the wind blows, you don't get pregnant. It's second grade. Thank you. It takes two to tango. So shouldn't that responsibility and that ultimate decision be made by the two? I mean, is that so crazy? Am I so crazy that I would even throw that? Is that such a horrible thing to say?
No, it's not. The women get mad because they say, well, it's our uterus. Okay, I understand that we have uteruses, but we can't get pregnant alone. The men have the sperm. It is a 50-50 joint effort here.
Thank you.
So,
actually, you could argue the act of sex is way more pressure on the man. We have to do a lot more of the work, let me tell you.
Okay, yeah, you do.
Well, not my home, but I've heard that. No, I'm sorry, go ahead. It's really 60-40, 70-30 creating it.
But for me, I am pro-life. For me, and that's where it got kind of bad with Twitter because people don't understand my point on it. For me, I'm not going out there voting against women to have a choice at all. It is their choice. It's each individual person. But for me, I'm pro-life. But I'm also pro-guy. I am for the man, too, because I do think the good ones out there are not given the chance to have a voice in this.
That's why I asked you to be my sister. My mother, I love you dearly for that. But I will tell you, not to be a semantic a-hole, but you technically, by your definition, are pro-choice because you are in favor of a woman's right to choose. Then you're pro-life morally, but you're pro-choice.
Yeah, I am pro-choice, but I'm pro-life for myself.
Yeah, no, and you know what? That's the beauty. And it's like we can all disagree and say different things. The bottom line is, as long as you're not telling somebody else how to deal with their business, you're not going to get in trouble. But you should be able to point out that, in certain situations that a decision is made by two people without it being such an issue, without people getting upset. I mean, literally, what people hear me say is, I'm going to get a woman pregnant, and I'm going to chain her to my bed because I want the baby, and I'm going to force feed her. I'm going to put her on an IV. I'm going to tie her up, and I'm going to keep her there for 10 months until she has my baby. That's what they're hearing me say when I say, should a guy have a say? And again, it was just a simple question at the beginning. I never even said what that say should be. Should it be legal? Should it be? I never even said that. I literally said the very simple term of should a man have a say? And I didn't think it was going to blow up like it did, which is probably
You're throwing out a really good question to have people think,
Yeah.
Think about what their answer would be and what is right or wrong. It's a discussion or a debate. It's not something to get irate over and to fight over.
Well, I agree. So thank you so much. I've got a couple other callers. You are awesome, by the way.
Great. I'll talk to you later. Have a good show. Bye.
All right, caller. I have a caller in the 214 area code. You're on the air. I don't have a name for you. Are you there? Hello? Okay. So much for that. At least it wasn't Captain Jenks asking me if I'd eat Howard Stern's poop. Come a long way. I have a caller from Hawaii. You're on the air.
Yeah, it's your sister.
Oh, Jessica.
No, Jenny.
Oh, you sound like Jessica who smoked all night.
I know. Dad can't even tell us apart. We sound a lot alike.
God, you guys are getting all yenta and Jewy as you get older.
Getting.
Are you smoking?
No, I was breathing out.
No. Breathing out cigarette smoke?
No, I quit smoking. I really did.
I did too.
When did you quit?
Oh, God. Well, officially?
Yeah.
Officially, 8 years ago.
Well, no, the real quitting.
Well, I picked up for the reality show
in
February.
Too.
So I had a couple. Well, you and I were pretty much huddled in the back behind camera smoking nonstop for 3 months. But since I got back from Hawaii, I'd say I struggled for about 2 or 3 months. So I've probably been quit since, I guess, September?
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what I did, too.
And I haven't even touched one. Although today might be the day.
It's so easy to quit. We might as well just keep doing it every once in a while.
So what's up? You're calling.
Nothing. I was just saying that when we were talking on Twitter and the conversations that I had with you, I don't consider in any way an argument or a war or anything. I think that I see what point you're making, but the point that I think me and Jen started out making was that ultimately, while the baby's in the woman's body, that that it's her body, kind of almost in a way. It really is a philosophical and religious debate.
Okay.
It really comes down to what point you see that fetus turning into a human being, and when that happens, is a totally different thing. And the medical care, huh?
For the sake of argument, for me, what I believe that it becomes a human being, honestly, is when it becomes a fertilized zygote. Once the sperm enters the egg, that's for the moment of conception, and that's not a religious thing. I remember taking biology class in high school, and I remember thinking, well, yeah, now you have the act of life happening now. Now you have cell division and, chromosomes pairing and all that kind of stuff happens pretty much instantaneously. And the question of a soul, that's more religious, but when life is happening, I would think...
a fetus isn't viable outside of the female's body until 28 weeks gestation. So it's that's the point that most people, and where the argument about late-term abortions and stuff comes in, is at about 28 weeks. If you were to, or it could be 26 weeks now. It changes because of medical innovations and stuff. But if the baby cannot live at all for any amount of time outside the womb, then it's considered a fetus, and if it could live outside the womb at that point in time, then it's considered a baby. And that's that's the medical that's how they draw the line in the medical field between baby and fetus. So that's where, because most of my background, because I'm not a religious person, even though I am philosophical, comes from, medical information because I've had so many kids. And, that's kind of where I see it. But that's me. And I get your point, too, seeing it, being right at conception. And I understand other people's point, too, that it's not until the baby's born and takes its first breath. And I see all sides of things. And I think it's just such a personal issue when we're talking about and I do agree with you, though, that men do not get fair treatment in the judicial system. Women don't either.
Wow, things, winning.
No, I've always said that. I've never not said that. But
that must have been Eli, and that was not me. I know you've always been fair about that.
No, I've always said that because I have a lot of friends that have, deadbeat dads, and I have a lot of friends that have dads who want to participate, and the mom, out of spite, doesn't allow them to. Right. And I've seen a lot of things where the dad wants something and the court says no. I see it more with class issues than I do sex, really. Like if the mom's rich, then she gets the rights, and if the dad's rich, it's really about, what kind of lawyers you can afford and stuff. But I definitely do see that if the dad, wants to take the baby from an abusive situation, everybody kind of scoffs and shrugs more than they would if it was the other way around. And I don't
want this to be another, male-female debate because, life isn't fair for anybody. I mean, really, if you break it down. And it's a useless argument, honestly, to even get into who has it worse. I stopped doing that a long time ago. Somebody's always got it worse than you, and somebody's always got it better. That should be everybody's frame of reference. It shouldn't go past that, in my opinion. Even this issue I'm bringing up isn't even that I feel necessarily that men are being screwed. I just feel for the kind of guys like me. I think the real point I'm trying to get out on this show today is that there's a lot more good guys out there, infinite amount more number of good guys out there than I think a lot of women think and are willing to admit. It's become this sort of caricature that is out there of men, and that's what started the last debate we got into a year ago on KCAA. Before it even got out of control, the original thing I ever said was, I think a lot of men are getting tired of constantly being told we're terrible, when a lot of us aren't. And when this thing came up, it wasn't a chance for me to push my agenda or anything. It was just like, here's another example where basically what I'm hearing is, this is my body, my choice, my baby, but once the baby's born, it's now your responsibility, and now you're going to be taken to court, and now you're going to pay pay for the kid and all this stuff. And it's like kind of this weird thing where I'm thinking maybe the problem is the initial thought, and I'm open to being wrong, but my opinion is maybe the problem is when a woman sits there and says, it's my baby. That's the first mistake, right or wrong. That's the beginning of the division between the two. In this case,
I don't know any women that are saying it's my baby. I know women who are saying it's my body, and that's where, again, you can't determine where you're coming from or what's right and wrong until you know where you think it goes from being a fetus and basically, in a lot of ways, a parasite to your body. Mm-hmm. And then it goes from being to an individual human being that has rights of its own. I want to find where that mark is too. But I think that when men and women get together, because I'm talking about, when I was talking about abortion on Twitter, I was talking about women who had been raped or young girls who haven't been provided the information. Like, I'm talking about those kind of cases. I'm married. I've been married 12 years. We have 4 kids. We've had scares in there that didn't come to full term, like the scares that I gave birth to. But we've had these conversations. Me and my husband have had these conversations, and the bottom line is, I don't think that you should be sleeping with anybody or being in a relationship with anybody that doesn't have enough respect for you to have those conversations with you. And you just shouldn't. And it's more of a personal issue than even a moral issue or a philosophical or religious issue, the kind you're talking about. But like your earlier caller was saying, that's such a small percentage of what abortion is about, that like when we were talking about pro-choice and pro-life and stuff, that it was more about women who had been victimized or women who didn't have enough money or enough information or enough education and those kind of situations, or women who had, medical conditions. A lot of abortions are done to save the mom, and because things are wrong with the baby and, it's killing the mom. There's probably more of all those reasons than there are of women who just had sex and don't want to take responsibility for it. And, maybe there's a way that the medical community could assess which one it is and decide not to pay for the ones that are birth control and decide to pay for all the other ones that are medical issues or mental health care issues. And then the ones that aren't and are birth control, then the person can pay for it because that's their choice. And if they have problems with the men whose baby it is, that's like a personal thing. Maybe there's a court-appointed psychologist or something they could talk to, but none of that's provided. It's like none of that information, none of that health care. Mental health has only, I learned on my radio show this morning, that mental health has only been forced to be covered by physical insurance companies for the past year. It wasn't even like you didn't even get mental health insurance.
No, of course not. I mean, that's another show, but this is the point you made, which I think is a brilliant point, and what I was hoping at this minute marker we would be getting to, which is what I was hoping to do is make people think on both sides, have a discussion. But at the end of the day, this is absolutely a personal choice because there are way too many mitigating circumstances. I mean, the best I could do on the show is I was trying to set up the frame of the debate to say it's between a husband and wife because there is a million different ways that this thing happens. It's astronomical the amount of calculations that you could have for why somebody has an abortion. So that's why I was trying to keep it there because I already knew I was walking into, basically a universe full of reasons. So the real issue here is we should all get to the point, which is it is absolutely, whether it's the woman or man's choice, it's an individual's choice.
Right.
Because your situation, what got you there, it's not just that you're an idiot always. Sometimes you are, though. I mean, some people are just so effing stupid that they go out and they have casual sex. And that's why there's a spread of STDs and people don't protect themselves. And there are stupid people day in and day out. Is that Eli? Day in and day out, and those people, we could say we have a court-appointed person. It's too much paperwork. It's too massive to determine and find and file which one did this and which one did that, which is why you just have to make it legal, which is why it has to remain pro-choice, because it's up to that person. If I was going to make any amendment to it, I would say in a relationship, in a marriage, I think the father should be consulted ahead of time. Ultimately, legally, it is the woman's choice. But when you're in a marriage,
you're in a marriage, you have a contract, and when you're under a contract with somebody, that's a totally different thing than when you're not. And I think that has something to do with it. When you sign the marriage contract saying, I'm with you better for worse, and you're basically agreeing that all your decisions and your money and your assets and your this and that is shared now. And so you're under a contract to have those conversations in a way. I mean, you're obligated.
By that definition, sorry to do this, but by that definition, then it is absolutely half your decision, half the man's decision, too. I mean, if a woman gets half the house for all the money, in that case, when a man's the breadwinner and he makes $1 billion, she gets half of it, and she's only, like Paul McCartney's ex-wife, she got like $100 million. She was there for 2 years. So
I get all that too, but I just think it's a slippery slope, and you have to weigh out. You have to weigh.
But we can still discuss the point, which is if everything in a marriage is 50-50, and everything of yours is half hers. And that's to the tunes of billions of dollars. And in our case, mom had to shell out a bunch of money for her ex-husband. So marriage is not about gender.
That's a state-by-state thing, too. Not every state sees it like that. Sometimes they'll go in and divide up assets by whose it was before and everything. That's community property. That's not always the case. So, I mean, that's another thing that's case by case. But, I'm saying that when you enter into that spiritual contract with another person, that you suck if you think you can make a decision like that on your own. But I'm also saying that it's still 100% the woman's decision, even though it's morally and completely incorrect, and that guy should pack his bags and run ASAP if he's married to somebody who won't talk to him like that. And it's totally not fair, and it's sad. But ultimately, it has to still be the woman's decision because it is her body until that baby is viable outside the womb and is outside the womb, or else you lose the other 99.9% of rights for those women that were raped or all the other things that we discussed earlier, So it's just too slippery of a slope to say they should have a say. Of course, you should not be married to anybody who doesn't tell you that they're pregnant with your baby and just goes and gets an abortion. I mean, obviously there's abusive relationships where that's different,
but in this case, just for the sake of argument, was what you just said, which I totally agree with. If it's ultimately the woman's decision, then again, the flip side of that argument isn't ultimately a man's decision whether or not he wants to take care of the kid then.
I have different feelings about that. When I found out I was pregnant, I was 23 years old. I was not married, and I said to my now husband, I told him, I said, you know what? This was us mutually. This was something we were not planning or thinking of. And if you don't want to help me out, and if you don't want to be a part of this every day, and if you don't want the responsibility or whatnot, leave and don't ever call me again. And I'm totally fine with that, and I'll take care of the kid, because that's me. Like, if I got myself in a situation, then I'm going to handle it. And so, he left. He was gone like 6 hours before he came sniveling back and begged me to marry him, and had 3 more kids with me.
It worked. Your manipulation worked.
It totally wasn't manipulation. I meant it 100%.
No, I remember.
I really meant it. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I really had let go, and I really meant it. And, yeah, for me, I would have done that. I would have raised the kid on my own, because for my personal self, I don't think I could ever have an abortion, although, I'll drive anybody who wants me to drive them. But I couldn't do it. Obviously, I have 4 kids. If I could, I would have.
Well, it's like the caller said to me earlier, Lori, I think it was, said, you're an anomaly in so many words, because I said, I'm a good guy, you're not the standard guy. And in the same case, I can make that argument for you. That's not necessarily the standard woman response to pregnancy, which is, hey, I'm going to handle this, you're free to go. I mean, if it was, true. Then I would say, you know what, problem solved. Shit, if you're going to sit there and say, this is my baby, then you can leave. Then, again, if all of you said, yeah, go ahead and leave, I'm not saying I'm encouraging fathers to leave their kids. I'm just saying, for the sake of this argument, it is really essentially the same thing. So we don't have that as men. We don't have that, legal right. If we literally get out of a kid's life, they'll track you down on Maury, and they'll do the paternity test, and you're paying child support legally.
Yeah, I get that.
Which is great. There's a lot of deadbeat dads, and I'm for it in a lot of ways, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, it's your body, it's your choice. Then it should be my body and my choice to get the F out if I want.
Right, I agree with that.
That's the point I'm okay.
I agree with
that.
If you can, but then, again, slippery slope and too many different variables. But just for the sake of argument at that point, yeah, I've always agreed with that. And I do think that it's unfair to the dad.
Well, thank you. So I win. Thanks,
you don't win, fatty. You never win.
Kidding. I love you. Go back and have a cigarette.
Love you. Bye.
All right, bye. Well, that was fascinating. Eli, you there?
Yeah.
Sorry, it was wall-to-wall conversation, not much chance for you to talk.
No, it's fine. I actually just like to listen, to be honest with you, because it's just fascinating what comes up and people's perspectives on this issue. And the points that you made were valid, and I never even thought of it before until today's show.
That's what I do. I go to Vince on Wednesday and I say, tell me what to say on Saturday, and then he tells me, and then I take credit. So it's awesome. Winning. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. Again, this debate can go a million different ways, but the bottom line is, wear a rubber and get on the pill if you're going to have sex and you don't want a baby. It's that simple. You've heard a radio show today where the host and the callers were all reasonable and all open-minded and all had a discussion, and even then, the amount of different places it could go and the amount of things come up, it was already slippery slopes and constant steering. So if it's that crazy on a radio show with adults that aren't even having the kid together, then I want my show to teach you that. Look how effing crazy. So you think, in your life you're out at a club, you see some hot chick or some hot guy, and you think you're just going to go back to the room and you're not going to protect yourself. If you don't think for a second just how terrifying that is and what awesome responsibility you have, you're an idiot. And that's why I'm, pro-choice, because sometimes we all do stupid crap. I mean, come on, we're all going to make a mistake from time to time. We're all going to sleep with the wrong person. And it's wrong to sit there and say to people, we're taking birth control, put an aspirin between your legs, don't have sex, because people are going to screw. You know what? We're all going to screw, and we're all going to get drunk and screw some hideous flabber beast like Peggy last week who hung up on me, right? So at the end of the day, if you're going to be careless a little bit, wear a condom and take the pill. And it's that effing simple. Thank you. I appreciate the canned applause. I wish that could follow me around all week. I want that on my iPhone app. And I also want to say to Jen, not my sister Jenny, but Jen Madlew, who fights with me like tooth and nail on Twitter, biggest moron ever. She never calls into my show, and it's upsetting me. please call in next week.
Sit there. Yeah, exactly.
We're a big chicken. All right, thank you, everybody. We are out.